Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Wealthy Queen 17, the Wellness Summit for women looking to make 2017 their healthiest year yet. If you are not familiar with me, I am Danny Taylor. I am the founder of DannyDTaylor.com. I'm a transformational wellness coach, author, and speaker, and I motivate and educate women in nutrition, fitness, and personal development to lose weight and live a healthier and happier life on purpose. So before we get started with our interview today, if you haven't already, I want you to go ahead over to your emails and click on the link so that you could join the group. We are going to be following the conversation there. If you don't have it in your email, you could go straight over to Facebook and join For the Queens Women on Wellness. And we're going to be hashtagging Stephanie, and we're also going to hashtag Wealthy Queen 17 so that we could keep up with the golden nuggets that Miss Stephanie is going to drop with us today. And our speaker is Stephanie, who is a dynamic author and speaker and transformation coach. She is the creatress of Cocoon to Wings Publishing and Coaching. Her platform is centered on joy, something that didn't come easily for her. She was gang attacked at 12, and she struggled with lack of self-worth and the low self-esteem into adulthood. By 36, never addressing the root of her feelings of unworthiness, she got married believing her significant other could fulfill that gap for her. That lie followed her into age 41 when infertility plagued her and obliterated her womanhood, also contributing to the demise of her marriage. She spent 2 years prostrate before God, seeking his face, and through her storm, she birthed her first baby, her novel, Is This the Way to Joy? Along her journey, she helped other women rewrite their pain story and turn it into their power story so their joy cup always overflows. And without further ado, we're going to get started with Miss Stephanie Out. And how are you today, ma'am?
Good morning, Danny. Good morning, Wealthy Queens. I'm doing fantastic, and I hope everyone is doing the same today as well. Thank you for having me. I think it's just such an awesome platform for us as women to be able to come together and share about wellness in every aspect of our lives, whether it be health, whether it be relationships, spirituality, finances. So I'm just really glad to be here, and thank you, Danny, for having me.
You're very, very, very welcome. Thank you for coming on. First, I want to get into, what do you consider spiritual wellness to be?
So spiritual wellness, I think, everyone can define it their own way. And I took some notes because I really wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to share my perspective with you around what I think spiritual wellness is. And for me, it's really about spiritual wholeness as well. But when I think about being well in my spirit, I think about connecting my mind, my body, and my spirit with something that is greater than myself. And for me, I am a Christian, and so that greater thing in my life is the Lord, my Heavenly Father. And so I believe that when I connect my mind, my body, and my spirit with Him, then I found that place of women, we can feel good in our mind one day, bad. And so there's a total misalignment that happens there. And so for me, I realized that I could achieve that spiritual wellness and that wholeness for myself. So I also think that, when you can get your mind and your body and your spirit moving in the same direction, everything's going together in that one same direction, that's when you start to find that peace. That's when you start to discover your purpose. That's when you start to understand what it is that God wants you to do with your life. And so really making sure that you find a way to center yourself, really listen and hone in on what it is that he wants you to do. That's when you can get to that place of saying, yes, I'm spiritually whole and I'm spiritually well, because I found that connection between my mind, my body, and my spirit.
That's awesome. What are some characteristics of someone who may not be spiritually aligned?
Okay, that's a good one. So for me, I think about that person, someone who's always walking around in chaos, that person who seems like they're always confused in their life. They don't know their head from their tail. That's the person that I think is spiritually misaligned. And I know because I've been there. I've been in that place where My life was completely chaotic. As you mentioned in my bio earlier, I went through a divorce. I struggled with infertility. I was gang attacked when I was 12 years old. And so all those things together really just put me in a negative place. And that carried through my adulthood. And so my life was always chaotic, always walking around in a state of confusion. And mind you, I've been a Christian since I was 11 years old, but it really wasn't until all these things started happening to me that I had to sit down and really say, okay, how do I get to a place of peace? Because I can't allow my past to continue to dictate my present. So what is it that I need to do to be able to get to that place of being peaceful, right? You know, those people who are spiritually misaligned are always complaining, been there. Always in a negative space, been there. And they can never see life from a positive perspective. You know, everything is so dark around them. You can actually see that darkness in their eyes. You can see that sadness in their eyes. That's the person who's spiritually misaligned. They don't even know how to connect to their center. They don't know how to get back to God. They don't know how to reconnect with their spirit that would put everything back in order with that, because I think we've all been there at some place in our lives.
Those are some great golden nuggets on how to figure out whether you are spiritually aligned or not. And what you said is they don't know how to tell their head from their tail. And you see a lot of that going around. Women are just, they're thoroughly confused and they're dissatisfied and they're not satisfied at all with their life because they haven't figured out how to move forward. They haven't figured out how to center themselves and really truly live in their purpose. So the flip side of that is I want you to let us know some characteristics of someone who is spiritually aligned or someone who is already, someone who is seeking that spiritual alignment. What are some characteristics that they will be able to see in themselves or something that they would be able to see in their lives that will help them figure out that they're on the right path?
Absolutely. So when I think about someone who is closer to spiritual alignment, I really do have to think about my own experiences and how did I get to a place of being spiritually aligned. And I look at how my decision-making process over my life at a time where I was not spiritually aligned up to now where I find that I am spiritually whole and spiritually well. I think about a person who thinks rationally through situations and how their responses actually impact them in their mind, their body, and their spirit. They don't react. You know, that person who is out of alignment in their spirit, they normally react to situations. But when you are spiritually aligned, you're going to focus on your center. You're going to pray about those things that you want to be able to do or be able to say. And you're going to respond to a situation. Because when you respond, you're going to align how that impacts your mind, your body, and spirit, and your soul. They are the types of people who allow themselves to go to God in prayer in order to determine what they want to do. They also lean on their resources. That was a big thing for me, was leaning on my resources. Those are resources that I knew were coming directly from God. Because a lot of times as women, you know, we can run to our friend and say, hey, I need your help to talk to you about this. But not every single person is the person that you're supposed to share your story with. Not every person is that person that you're supposed to connect with. Not every person is really the resource that God has set out for you. So when you are seeking out resources, you want to make sure that you use your godly intuition. You pray about who it is that God has placed in your life to be that resource for you. And you want to know that that's a person who's going to be there for you through good and through bad, no matter what, right? So we know in our gut, as women, we have that intuition, right? We know in our gut when something is good, and we know in our gut when something is bad. We know that we haven't, we know when we feel like we're being spiritually led and spiritually fed by another person. So those are the people that God has aligned you with. Those are the people that God has placed in your life to be that resource for you, that trusted person that you're going to be able to go to, right? So someone who's spiritually aligned is also going to follow their first mind. That's something that my mom has always said. Follow your first mind, because your first thought is often the right one when you're in tune with your spirit, right? Because God is going to place that right in your spirit. You're going to know. And God has already said, hey, this is that nugget of truth that I want you to have. So a spiritually aligned person knows that, and they spend less time doubting themselves, and they trust their instincts.
That is a lot of golden nuggets there. Ladies, if you are listening, I want you to go ahead and share those in the group using the hashtag Cindy and hashtag WealthyQueen17. Something she just said, which was so profound, that you need to follow your first mind, because you know that is something that God said to you. And that's just not something that you just making up off the top of your head. That is not something that you're trying to work back and forth between that option and another option. That first thing is usually the right thing to do. So, Ms. Stephanie, from there, would you be able to tell us, just from your experience, how can we support someone who is trying to create spiritual wellness? You just spoke on resources that God has sent to you, and let's assume that we are the resource for someone else. How can we support them? And also, how can we encourage others and help them support us on our journey?
Yeah. So when I was seeking that spiritual wellness for myself, I literally got on my knees and I prayed to God that he would allow me to open up and reconnect. Because I got to a place where I felt completely disconnected. And like I said, I had been a Christian since I was 11 years old, but I didn't always have that connection with God the way that other people do. And I used to look and say, well, what is it, about them that they have this connection, this strong relationship, this strong communication path with God, and I don't have it. And I had to get to a place where I just got on my knees. I fell prostrate before God, and I said, God, I need you to allow me to reconnect with you. I need to get to a place where I feel deep in my soul that I trust you and you're there for me no matter what. And so that was the first thing that, for me, allowed me to be able to get to a place of creating spiritual wellness. That was asking God to allow me to reconnect with him. So that's one of the things I would tell you all, wealthy queens, is when you feel like you have a disconnect from you in your center, you feel like you have a disconnect from the spirit, you have to go to God and you have to pray and ask him to rebuild that connection, reestablish that connection, so that you are at a place of knowing that when you hear a word, that it is truly from him, that there's no doubt in your mind when it is him that's speaking, because your connection is so strong that there's nothing that can break it. And then, thinking about going back to what I said about losing my connection with Christ, maybe I should use a different word or a different terminology. I didn't lose it, right? I pretty much kind of had given it up, because it wasn't like this connection was hiding somewhere and I had to find it. No, I had given it up. I had given it up to my then husband. I had given it up to, everyone else who had needed something. I put everyone else before God. I put everyone else before that connection with God. And what I did was I established these new connections that took me away from my source. So when you are feeling that disconnect, you have to look at your life circumstances and you have to figure out, what is it that's causing me to be disconnected? Is it a person? Is it a place or a thing? And when you figure out what that is, what that situation is that caused that disconnect, you have to go to God and ask him to remove it, whatever it might be. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on, what you need to do that. One of the things about me is when my marriage was falling apart and I was walking around in chaos and confusion, just totally misaligned, I asked God to show me in his word what I needed to do to get back into his good graces, because I felt like I had fallen from God's grace. And he led me to a word in Psalm 51:10. And it was where David was in that same situation and he felt like he had lost his connection with God. He felt like he had fallen from grace. And he said, create in me a clean heart and renew in me a right spirit. And that was the scripture that really was that first confirmation for me from God that he was hearing me. And that at that time, I realized I could be on my way to spiritual renewal. And so that excited me. And that's another thing that I would drop as a nugget in your spirit is ask God to send you some confirmation, right? And you know how he sends confirmation, right? For you. it's different for every single person. For me, he sends confirmation through his word, which he did through that scripture. He sends confirmation through his people, which I know exactly the people in my life that he's going to send that confirmation through. Those are those resources I talked about before, right? So you have to make sure that you are so closely connected with God that you know exactly how he's going to be able to send you the confirmation that you need. And when you ask him, be very specific. I cannot tell you enough. Be very specific about what you need to hear from him. And if you need to say, God, I need to hear it in this way to know, it's okay to ask him. Now, will he do it that way? Maybe not, but it's okay to ask him, because you want to be able to establish that firm understanding of exactly how God is going to speak to you and connect to you. So that's what I would tell someone, is to make sure that they're listening deep within their spirit to what that word is that God is speaking to them, whether through the word, whether through daily inspiration, whether through a person. Ask God for that specifically. I mentor a few young ladies, and one of the things that I've shared with them is that they need to make sure they have a spiritual accountability partner. I think all of us need that. You need that person who is going to tell you when you're right, and you need that person who's going to tell you when you're wrong. And for me, I have one person in particular. We've been friends for over 20 plus years. And when I say this woman has the direct line to God, she has a direct line to God. And she's the person that God has placed in my life to be my spiritual accountability partner. And so it is so important that you connect with someone who's going to be there for you and help guide you through, someone that you can ask questions, and make sure you're going to someone who you feel like has a right spirit and has the right intentions when they're coming to you. Not someone who's going to be rude in the way they speak to you, not someone who's going to be hurtful in the things that they share, but you know that they have your best intentions at heart when they're sharing with you. You need that special someone who's going to pray with you, for you, day and night. I know with my spiritual accountability partner, I can call her any time of the day, any time of the day, any time of the night. And if I'm calling her, she knows that I'm in need of prayer. She knows that I'm in need of something. And so when you find someone like that, it's a blessing. So make sure that you are being truly connected to God in a way that when you go to him in prayer, you go with discernment about who that spiritual accountability partner should be for you. Okay? Because I think I said this earlier, every prayer warrior, they're not your prayer warrior. Okay? Every person that prays is not supposed to pray for you. And you don't want everyone speaking and praying into your life. You want to be very, you want to have someone that's specifically purposed to your life, right? So make sure that you ask God to send your specific prayer warrior, your specific accountability partner that's designed just for you. And then lastly, I would say when someone is trying to create spiritual wellness, we can support that person, whether it be a woman, a man, but since we're specifically talking to the wealthy queens, I would say we could support her through regular messages of encouragement. I have a person who in my life, my sister-in-law or sister-in-love, Shelly Paris Williams, she is truly a godsend to me. She is that person that God sent for me to be that light in my life. She is someone that faithfully sends me a mantra every single morning. And she created this mantra for me to be able to read to myself and put it into my spirit. And that mantra is what gets me up every day, ready to soar, ready to conquer the world. And because of her daily encouragement to me, God also allowed me to be able to start imparting some daily encouragement into other people's spirit as well. So I send daily inspirational messages on social media. So anyone who needs encouragement can read my posts and feel inspired. And I'm blessed when I see responses coming back about how those messages have touched someone's life. And so I think that when you have someone like that who's able to encourage you, and it doesn't, again, have to be your spiritual accountability partner, it can be someone else. It's just a blessing to be able to have that type of person to support you in your life, someone that's going to encourage you no matter what.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing that with us. That was a lot of golden nuggets all in that answer. It was pretty loaded. So something that you said that really resonated with me was that when you seek to God for a confirmation, you specifically, you kind of get that confirmation from other people. And that's very similar to how I am with my spiritual partners. When I know I'm looking for something, I don't even have to say it out loud to them. They could come with me to an answer, and I know that God sent their answer because I never said that to them. So when you are someone who is spiritually aligned and you are seeking that, when you are truly going to God for your answers, then you will see something very similar to that. He's going to give you answers without you ever having to say it out loud. And you know for sure that that is coming straight from God and it's not coming from anyone else. So I know you just gave us a lot of information on some steps on how we could move forward in our spiritual alignment. But if you don't mind, just give us actionable steps that you recommend for someone who is looking to create spiritual alignment and balance in their lives.
Sure. So I have 7 steps that I developed for myself when I was going through the process of trying to make sure that I could create that spiritual wellness and spiritual wholeness in my own life. And I'm actually going to be sharing those 7 steps in my Break the Shell Mind, Body, and Soul coaching program that I'm developing. It'll be released in March. So what I'll do is I'll share 3 of those steps with you all, and you'll need to register for the program if you want to hear the rest. But I think it'll be really eye-opening when for someone who wants to be able to create spiritual wellness. So the first step that I would say is pretty important. It goes back to what I mentioned before about making sure that you're removing those toxins from your life. So I call that spiritual detoxing or spiritual cleansing. That'd be the first step. You really want to identify what are those toxins in your life that are keeping you from being spiritually whole. What's keeping you from being spiritually well? And you need to identify if it's a person, if it's a place, or if it's a thing. What are the surroundings that prevent you from being your spiritually best self, from keeping you from being spiritually fit? And once you've identified those things, you have to make sure that you go to God in prayer about removing those things from your life. Now, sometimes God will remove those toxins for you. And it's a painful process when God does it for you. He had to do that for me with my ex-husband, where I was holding on so tight to something that was not good for me. Holding on so tight because at that time I just didn't understand my worth. I didn't understand my value. So I thought it was okay to hold on to something that wasn't good for me, and it was toxic for me as a woman. And God had to allow my ex-husband to file for a divorce because I was not going to do it, right? And so God said, I'm going to remove this toxin from your life because I need you to be your best self. And as painful as it was, I'm healed from it now, thank God. But as painful as it was at that time, it was the best thing that has ever happened to me. And so God will do it for you. But a lot of times he wants to see how courageous you're going to be to do it yourself. And that's the hard part, to stand in your strong place, to stand in your place of courage and say that I can remove these toxins myself is a really powerful thing, because he wants to see how spiritually fit you are. And he wants to see if you're able to do it on your own with his help. So I would say that's the very first step for someone who wants to create that spiritual alignment, that spiritual wellness, that spiritual wholeness for themselves, is to make sure they start with a spiritual detox or spiritual cleansing. And then number 2, I would say they have to do some spiritual maintaining. So once you've gotten to that place where you feel good in your mind, you feel good in your body, you feel good in your soul, you have to put in the work to maintain it, right? And it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come naturally for some people. It didn't come naturally for me. Every time I would go to pray, I would fall asleep. Every time. and it was the enemy. He knew exactly when I was going to pray, and he would swoop in, right? So I had to start changing my habits, right? I had to stop praying in the bed, make sure I was getting on my knees, make sure that I was praying throughout the day as well, and not just leaving that prayer time to a certain time. So I had to figure out my own routine. And when you are creating spiritual wellness, you have to figure out your own routine as well to make sure that when you have that routine in place, you can maintain it. Okay. So some of the things that I do to maintain my spirit, I read the Word of God. So I read my Bible. I do yoga. I do meditations. I like to listen to meditations in the morning. I like to listen to them in the evening before I go to bed, because they really help to get me centered, centered in my spirit. And sometimes people don't like meditation. Sometimes people don't like silence. I have learned to love the silence. And I was not a person that loves silence. I used to always have the TV on, music or something. But now I can be in silence, because in the silence is when I hear from God. And so meditation, like I said, is one of the things I do. I write. I am an author as well. So I love to write. And I love to read daily inspirational messages. That's a part of my maintenance process, my spiritual maintenance process. Those are the things I keep in my spiritual toolkit. And so I would tell a person to make sure that as a part of doing their spiritual maintenance, to create their own toolkit. What are the things that they need to be able to maintain their spirit every single day, and make it a daily routine that you follow? And then lastly, I would say spiritual refreshing. So once you maintain, and you get that routine, sometimes that routine becomes so mundane that you get bored, right? So you have to find a way to keep your spirit refreshed. So take some time to do something new. Take some time to do something that fills your soul and refreshes your spirit in a way that you've never done it before. And a lot of times when I don't know what to do differently, I ask other people, I ask people, hey, what are some of the things that you do to refill your joy cup? What are some of the things that you do to make sure that your spirit is revived and renewed every day? And I may take one or two of their ideas, and then I'll incorporate those into my routine to make sure that I'm staying refreshed. If they don't work for me, I ask someone else, right? And I do research on some of the things that I could do to stay refreshed. And you have to constantly keep doing that to make sure that you are reviving and refreshing your spirit in a way that makes you feel rejuvenated every day. So again, I would say your spiritual detox or cleansing, your spiritual maintaining, and then also your spiritual refreshing when you are someone that's trying to make sure you can create a path for spiritual wellness. Those are some action steps I would say you can take.
Those are some awesome action steps, Stephanie. And that's not just for spiritual wellness, queens. That is for all wellness. So if you are someone who is trying to become healthier in your body, in your nutrition and fitness, those are also things that you should do. You should detox, and you should maintain, and then you should refresh as you need to. Also with your emotional wellness, with your mental health, all of that. You just always need to create these lifestyle changes and work with them so that you can maintain a healthy lifestyle. And this wouldn't just be something short term for you. The maintenance is very important. If you're looking to really remain aligned and really operate in your purpose and your intention that God has for you, then you really need to cleanse yourself of everything that's negative in your life, all the toxins, as Ms. Stephanie just said, and then move forward with maintenance and refreshing. So thank you so much for all of those golden nuggets that you just shared, ladies. If you missed any of it, you can definitely go on and watch the replay. Ms. Stephanie, is there anything that you would like to offer the ladies?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you again, Danny. This is, like I said, an awesome forum for women who want to create wellness in their lives. And it's just been an honor to serve as a spiritual guide. I know when you reached out to me, you called me a spiritual expert. I in no way would consider myself a spiritual expert. I'm just someone who had to learn from experience, right? I had to learn from experience the things that I needed to do to make sure that my cup was full every day and that my cup was overflowing so that I could pour that into other people's spirits. So I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity just to be a guide to those who wanted to understand the path to spiritual wellness. So I thank you, and I thank these awesome Wealthy Queens for being a part of this experience, and those who get a chance to see the recorded version as well. I would say that if you have additional questions or you want to reach out to me, you can find me on my website at stephanieouten.com. And it's Stephanie, STEPHANIE, Outen, OUTTEN.com. I have several speaking engagements coming up. I'll be sharing those with my email subscribers. So if you go onto my website and subscribe to my email list, you'll find out more about the different speaking engagements that I have coming up. I'll also share them on social media. I do have a fan page, and it's Stephanie Outen Author Speaker, if you want to follow me there. What I'm most excited about is the upcoming release of Soul Talk, which is an anthology that I was selected to be a part of by four-time best-selling author Cheryl Pelote Williamson. And I'll be a co-author with 19 other courageous women who decided to share their stories about how we let go and let God in our lives. And that's coming in March. So I'm super excited about that. And I can't wait for the April 1st release party. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas. So I'll be sharing more information about that. So like I said, just stay in touch with me. I am a life coach and transformation agent. So if you wanted to reach out to me about those life coaching services, feel free to do that. I am an author that continues to write. So I'm working on my second novel. My first novel, Is This the Way to Joy, which I'm so excited about. I actually have it here. Is This the Way to Joy? I released in December. You can find it on my website as well. It's out for publication under my own publishing company, Cocoon to Wings Publishing. And so I am also a publisher. So if anyone who is a God-led author wants to be able to understand how to bring their works to life, to bring birth to their written babies, I'm happy to help serve them in that process as well. So I'm excited about all the amazing things that God is doing. So again, you can follow me on my fan page on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram at Stephanie Outen, and Twitter at StephOuten20. So feel free to just drop in, get some of those daily inspirational nuggets that I put out there. And I'd love to hear from you guys soon at a later date. So thank you again. And thank you, Danny, so much. And I just pray that God will continue to bless you in your ministry, because it truly is a ministry to be a life coach. It truly is a ministry to share and to serve in the way that you do. And for all the other featured speakers that you've already had on and that will be on this week, I pray that God will just bless you all abundantly and be able to continue to give and give and give unto you, so that you'll be able to give back to others, because that's our mission in life. That's the purpose that God created us for, is so that our joy cups will overflow so that we can pour into someone else. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate you, and pray that blessings will continue to fall upon each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And likewise, we pray that blessings will fall upon you as well. Everyone who is watching, again, go back and watch this video. Nuggets. She shared a lot of information that could be extremely helpful if you are an implementer, if you are someone who is going to actually get up and take the action. If you take action, these things that she offered to us today will definitely show that they will manifest in your life, and they will make you a better person in the long run. So thank you, everyone, again for coming on. I hope to see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with me and Ms. Shadon, and she is going to share some information about self-care, self-love, and emotional wellness as well. So thank you all. Thank you all. You have an amazing Wednesday, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.